Hi, and welcome to Practice Makes Parent, where we understand it's not about perfection, but about transformation. I'm Dr. Danny Huerta.
And I'm Rebecca St. James. Well, today's topic can leave Christian parents with a tough decision. We are talking about Halloween. Quite the topic that we've got today,
It's Danny. A good one.
It's a good and needed one.
Yes.
And Danny, Halloween certainly has a dark side. There are people who use it as an excuse to celebrate evil, and I think that we should definitely guard our families from that side of things. But Halloween can also be a great opportunity to build community with your neighbors and share the light of Christ. And so there's a lot to talk about with this topic. And we really want to sensitively and authentically share from our experiences and share some different approaches to October 31st. But it's going to be a great episode.
Well, let's sort through this because really, when we've written articles around this topic or had anything go out, we get a lot of response to it because parents do want to know.
Yes.
Should I participate in Halloween? Should we be a part of this whole thing?
Yep. Should we not?
Should we not?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's evil, paganism, real deal right out there, and it continues to grow. And so do our kids' imaginations and their love of candy and other things.
And dressing
and
up.
Fun and
dressing that is
up.
A part of childhood that is
that's
beautiful.
Part of it.
Yeah.
Did you know that let's see, Rebecca, if you know this. Do you know how much money is spent on candy on Halloween? Last year, 2023. What do you think?
I have no idea, but it's a lot.
All right, listeners, throw your guesses in there. It's $3.6 billion.
No way.
Just on candy. That's sugar alone. And on
let alone the outfits. Can you imagine what the numbers for the outfits?
There's $12.2 billion total in 2023 dollars spent. And as far as candy, it was 21.6 million pounds of candy. That is a lot. That's a lot of sugar. A lot of things going on Halloween.
All the dentists listening are cringing right now.
Yeah, that's right. It was interesting when my son was, he started dating at the age of 16. And we got into just a lot of great conversations around that, and he had done his dating contract and all this. And around the age of 17, 18, he went to a movie with her family, and they went and watched kind of more of a thriller type of movie, and we hadn't gone to many of those, really not really any of them at this point. And he really enjoyed that, and he found out that family loved horror movies.
Wow.
And I said, son, let's talk about this. Now, horror movies tend to have a really heavy amount of evil type of demonic type of things in there, and it gets more and more real as they go. You're getting older, and you're going to have to develop a worldview on this. But here's what I think as your dad. As you're meeting a family that's Christian, that also that actually loves to go to these horror movies, finds those entertaining, but they're different than us.
Yeah,
doesn't make us more Christian or anything like that. We have a line that we've drawn very clearly. So I want you to be thinking about this as you interact more with this family. They invite you to these places, and I know on Focus on Parenting, our other podcast, I had mentioned that he had gone to. That maybe he liked horror movies. He clarified with me. He said, Dad, I don't like that. I really clearly see that there's a lot of evil within that. And we draw the line there, and I agree with that. But the thriller movies are fun. Some of them are kind of silly. Some of them are. And so he has been developing his worldview, and that's what we want our kids to be doing.
Yes.
And around Halloween, there are a lot of conflicts that begin to happen in the teen years and preteen years. Around this. So I'm excited that we're going to dig into this.
Yeah, and Rebecca. I think the intent here is really to encourage you and your families, especially as spouses, to, or, you might be in a single parent family, to prayerfully examine what God is calling you to do. I think we're not trying to impose any particular way, especially when it comes to this topic. I think that we're going to look later in the podcast at different reasons why certain families might make a choice for or against Halloween, participating in it.
Well said.
But our intent with this is not to say, "Thus saith the Lord," through Focus on the Family.
Right.
This is the way to go. It really is pointing back to this is your decision as a family before God. to decide how you navigate it. And here are some ways that Danny and I have navigated it ourselves.
That's
and
good.
So, yeah.
All right.
think for me, I've got to be honest, this, when Nathan, our producer, first came to Danny and I about doing this episode, there was a little bit of fear and trepidation because it is such a kind of a hot topic and a challenging one. And I think there can be diverse opinions within the church on what is right and what is wrong.
And strong opinions.
Strong opinions. Do you only do trunk or treat at your church or a harvest party, or do you do Halloween within your neighborhood, and do you put candy out? Do you dress up? Do you do all the things? And again, I think that we can only be authentic as to how we have felt led by God when it comes to this topic, and show up with our hearts. But really it comes down to you, the listener, going before God and seeking what he's calling you to do as a family.
And hopefully we're all seeking that. We're all
100%.
pursuing that, right? There's a lot of psychology to Halloween. I mean, there really is. There's a lot of marketing that takes place there. There's the imagination piece for kids. There's the movies and the reality that producers have hit it big there, and that horror movies do produce a tremendous amount of money and revenue.
Yes.
And it really reminds me, Romans 12:9 is interesting. It says, "Let love be genuine, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good." Can we do that in this holiday or this Halloween? The other verse later on says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." Can we bring life to something that is dark? Can we bring light to our neighbors? I know when we were trick-or-treating with our kids early on, it was a great opportunity to meet our neighbors and to be silly with them.
Yep.
I know I dressed up kind of silly. One of our neighbors, he came in with one of those giant sumo
That's
costumes,
amazing.
and we were laughing together. We
Totally.
were just having a fun time with other young parents and our kids, and imagining things together. And in fact, we even did some talent shows as a family, invited family over, had great meals together and in the Halloweens, and then would go and do some trick-or-treating, bring the candies back, and the kids would
Count?
share them, would count them,
My
and then
kids
trade,
count.
and then they learned about each other through that. They go, "Oh, you love that one, I love this one," and they'd barter with each other.
And it's a relational
It was
time.
very relational. They remember those, and the talent shows were so fun. The kids would act out their whoever their character was. They'd act it out and then do maybe a talent show that they've been working on, as maybe they're learning a musical instrument or something. And it gave them the opportunity to not be so afraid to perform in front of people, because it was already a time where you were not necessarily acting yourself, and so you could be kind of goofy and a little bit step out of that. So it was a great time to do a little talent show.
Yes, and show a different part of your
pressure.
personality. Yeah, because you're kind of putting on like a character.
Yes.
Yes, and there's freedom to explore that.
So it gave us time to, or an opportunity to really have a fun time as a family, but also to talk about the other costumes that were out there, and some that for the kids they'd say, "Man, that's scary." Or we'd see a house that was absolutely, it did feel evil. It looked evil. They had maybe a garage with curtains, and you had to step in there, and it was all about fear and this place of terror. And then you go to another house where it was just fun, and person's dressed up and bubbly and fun. So we had to make choices and decisions along the way to guide our kids where we thought this is a good place to go. This is not so good. And you guys as parents, we all get to do that. We all get to guide our kids along the way as we're interacting with whatever the season is. And this one happens to be one that has a lot of evil to it as well.
Yeah, and it's tricky to navigate. And for me, Danny, I mean, it was very interesting growing up in a country of Australia till I was 14 with no Halloween. Like it just didn't exist when I was growing up there. So I think it is more of an American thing from what I've experienced. I think I was growing up in a very conservative church, and so I think we were a little unsure about how to navigate it. I think my parents weren't quite sure. And honestly, going into parenting, I think I was a little unsure. My husband had grown up here in the US and experienced Halloween his whole life, and then I had not. And so, to be honest, I think it was something that, because I had a great childhood without it, if I had have felt this Holy Spirit conviction of, this is just wrong, it's too dark, I think it's inviting some stuff that we don't want in our family, I probably could have thought our kids will have a good childhood without participating in Halloween every year. But then as I started, thinking it through a little bit more and going, okay, in my fear as a parent, I could, and maybe a tendency towards ticking the I'm being a good Christian box, I could just go, yeah, we're not going to do this. It's just a little bit too scary. There might be some danger in it. And then I started, Danny, going, okay, so if we do that, what is the end result with my children? It is that they feel like they're missing out on something that is fun. They're missing out on dressing up. They're missing out on this candy that all these other kids are, getting to experience. Is it going to promote the sense of, because we're Christians, we miss out on something that is just fun? Mom and Dad, it's just fun. I could hear that conversation. And so I leaned a little bit more on this kind of middle ground of, let's do the fall festivals at the local church that are great. And let's...
The trunk or treats.
Yeah, trunk or treats,
things.
yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then, let's let the kids dress up, maybe not do the scary outfits so much. That was a boundary for us. Or for me, and even decorating the house. I don't particularly like the scary stuff. So that our kids know Mom doesn't like the scary outfits or the scary decorating. That's kind of a boundary for her. Whereas Dad would probably just go for the whole shebang. So there's a little bit of a mixed review within our family.
And that's the reality for probably the majority of homes. There's a different, rarely do you match on everything in the house.
Yeah, and there's a bit of give and take.
Husband and wife.
Yes.
There is a different perspective, different background that's brought into it. And this one can create big conflict.
Yes.
Between mom and dad, husband and wife. And that's because of those roots that we know are there around Halloween. And it's a place where some Christians feel very passionate about the fact that we shouldn't, again, convicted, that's a good word, that we shouldn't even touch this Halloween. Don't talk about it.
Right.
Don't be a part of it, because you're going to be somehow celebrating it by doing that, celebrating everything that goes around it. And we know there's occultism, there's paganism, there's demonic pieces to Halloween. It's more so in our face now than really ever before in my lifetime, anyway. Right. When you look at movies or when you look at things around just online and social media, there's a very real evil side to Halloween. Yeah. We have to be discerning as Christians around that.
Yes.
What a great opportunity, though, on this side to be able to talk to our kids about good and evil.
Yep.
About what does it mean that there's a demonic realm out there? What does it mean that there's evil out there? What do we do with that as a family? And then what do we do with this idea of having this very active, amazing imagination and being able to play other identities in a day that's been created, to be able to have fun with that? And how do we take on biblical characters instead of these evil ones? We get to choose that as a family. Let's talk about these reasons why Christians, us just as Christians, why maybe it makes sense that we don't even celebrate Halloween. Let's talk about that, and then let's talk about the pros.
There's some valid concerns. Yeah, let's definitely.
So why do you think, Rebecca, on your side, I know you lean more towards that side of let's not participate.
Well, let's just be cautious with it. I think I think once I started living here for a longer period of time, and I just saw the fun and the play in it. It wasn't too hard of a, of a big stretch or a jump for me to kind of go, I think this is okay for our family. I think we keep it more on the fun, innocent side. But I think that not having grown up with it, it definitely felt foreign initially, and you do hear about the roots of it being in paganism, and you do hear about followers of Wicca believing that October 31st is when the separation between the physical and the spiritual realms is the thinnest. I mean, there's some of these things that you hear that come into play that can be a bit scary as a parent and can make you go, well, is this something that we need to sacrifice because it might induce fear? So I've more come into a place where I feel like my husband has spoken into it, I've spoken into it, and we've come into something a balance that we feel is good.
And so as we look at this dark side of Halloween, we need to understand the impact that it can have on people, especially vulnerable youth. And to be honest, when I've seen any kind of trailers for Halloween and around this time and the horror movies come on, it's gotten more and more dark, and I get a check in my spirit.
Yes.
And I remember talking to Heather. I said, "Hey, honey, this really bugs me deep in my soul, whatever the trailer is." Or whatever. She goes, "Man, I don't feel it as much." And I know when we were doing the trick-or-treat things, she could tell that I had kind of a stronger reaction to that evil side of things.
Yeah.
And initially I had said, maybe we should not do Halloween. But she bounced me out. She's the one that said, "Hey, let's just have fun with it." And that was so helpful for me to be able to hear her give a case for the imagination. And I just wanted to shut it down.
Yeah. It does feel a bit safer as a
it
parent.
did.
Yeah.
Just thinking of this spiritual side.
Yes.
And, we can figure other things out.
Right.
Let's turn the lights off. Let's have movies, hunker down. And,
Yeah.
And I had grown up being able to go trick-or-treating and had fun with it. But I was thinking, man, these are my kids. And all these things out there, wanted to protect them. But I think that balanced view for us has been super good with our kids.
Well, it can be a really sweet time to experience your neighborhood, and it can be really ministry to the neighborhood as well. Like I think of certain people that, they might set up a soup stand, or like they might offer, I don't know, chips as well as like candy or chili. Some people in these neighborhoods, or, apple cider, and you're just going, wow, they're kind of like ministering to their neighborhood and connecting. And so as Christians,
some people are out there on their driveway, right?
Yeah,
on their driveway
exactly.
and handing those things out and saying, "Hey, how you guys doing tonight?"
Yeah, and they got like a little fire where people can warm their hands. Like it really can be a ministry too. So we've really talked about some of the dark, questionable components about Halloween. But I mean, let's talk about, is it a sin to celebrate Halloween, Danny? I mean, let's put that out there.
Yeah, I've never read that in Scripture, right, where it says, "Hey, if you celebrate Halloween, it's a sin."
No.
Things around that. I mean, if we look at dressing up and having an imagination and eating candy,
the playfulness
of it is not a sin.
Right.
Is there a dark side to Halloween? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we need to be cautious with that. Does it make you a bad Christian if you participate in anything that has to do with Halloween, if you yourself dress up and have a party at your house? I mean, I don't see that. God is the judge, and we need to look at His Word. I don't see anything in His Word that would say that we're sinning. Now, are we causing somebody to stumble by what we choose to wear or what we
there you go.
do? Then we need to keep that in mind, because that is something that the Scripture warns about.
Well, and I love that you brought that up. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all for the glory of God." And I do think about, even as a mom of 2 girls, some of these outfits, Danny, like, I mean,
highly provocative
oh my
sexual
goodness.
ones,
and it just feels scary to me to look at what is being offered for even teenagers, and most of it for females is that kind of sexy look.
Yeah.
And so I would just also prayerfully encourage our listeners to go, how can we put some boundaries around this and go, look, as a Christian family, we are trying to honor God and we're trying to glorify Him. And so that extends to what we choose as an outfit. If it's extremely scary for our sons, or if it's provocative for our daughters. Like, we've just got to make sure that it's honoring. And even at 10, you know, our daughter, we've had to put some boundaries in there. So it starts pretty young, like, you know, because these outfits, even for tween girls, can extend to it being on the sexier end, you know. So layering up and making sure that it's not
hopefully it's a very
not
cold
dishonoring.
night. I remember my daughter, as we were looking for some fun costumes along the way, just seeing that, and even guarding my son as we walked into some of those places looking for some of the the costumes that were fun. I think he wanted to be a superhero, and man, I love the imagination around superheroes and what that means, and talking about the fact that we get to be superheroes in God's kingdom.
Yes.
Right? He gives us these spiritual gifts and other things where we get to be part of that and contributing. And with Christ, we can do all kinds of things.
Yes.
And but man, as we were walking into some of those places, I go, "Oh, hey son, let's go over here." I mean, pictures and advertisements plastered around.
Some of these moving characters too. Like, I remember taking our kids to pick out an outfit at one of those like pop-up tents that happen at the mall kind of thing. And we walked in, and because you're not seeing it, you know, beforehand, you don't even know what you're going to see. But one of my daughters, I think for a year or two after that, I mean, she started shaking visibly at what she was seeing at one of these characters that was moving and seemed so real. And I mean, it was very, very scary. Even for grown-ups, I feel like, you know, for certain sensitive types like myself, it's disconcerting, right? But she was probably 4 or 5 at the time, and it was just, she started shaking just even looking at it. And those images in their heads too can be so challenging. So
well, you know,
do have to be really careful.
Rebecca, because we do, many families out there have kids that struggle with anxiety. It's a real deal.
Yes.
And this can trigger some pretty big anxiety. And so
it did for my middle.
Be discerning.
Yeah.
You may have one child that's very curious and adventurous and is not scared about anything. And then you have a child that is very easily scared.
Yes.
And you could potentially shame them in that moment, or say, hey, why are you so afraid of that? Or you laugh at them. And it causes them to kind of hide in that anxiety on their own, because you're not safe to talk about
what
this
they're feeling.
with. And so you want to be aware of that and where this anxious child's going to be, and what makes sense and what you're exposing them to if you choose to do so. And as you have those children that are a little more discerning and more impacted spiritually, dig into that and say, man, that's amazing, that superpower you've got to see this spiritual realm in such a way where you have some reservation to even participate.
Right.
If they're challenging you as a family, saying, why are we even doing this? Say, man, that's a great superpower you've got, and that's a great question. Let's talk about this.
Yes. And
this is the part of Halloween that we're participating in. This is the part that we're not.
Yes.
As Christians and believers, this we're not doing anything with. Be clear as to what those lines are and the why.
Yes.
As parents, because that creates respect towards the boundaries.
100%.
Yeah.
And really, I hope you hear our heart through this podcast, you know, in an attempt to really open the discussion for and against, and some of the middle ground that there is on it, because the Lord really desires faithful obedience for you, for your family, for all of us. For Christians, Halloween does offer the opportunity to model faithfulness and obedience in our decision making. We can also be a light through it. As Christians, why are we here in the world? Are we called to reach out to a world filled with dangers to represent Christ? Yes, we are. So whatever your decision, make it for the glory of God, and prayerfully go to God about it and be led by the Holy Spirit. It is a real opportunity for you to press in that way. And if you are passing out candy this Halloween, Focus on the Family has handouts for a free trial membership for our Adventures in Odyssey Club that we would love to send you. You can just head over to adventuresinodyssey.com/October or click the link below in the show notes to share Adventures in Odyssey with the trick-or-treaters that come to your door. I think that's a really wonderful resource.
Isn't that fun? Yeah, that's a great one. We The staff here at Focus on the Family, we have them take Club Junior magazines.
Oh,
And
yeah.
hand those out to trick-or-treaters around here,
or
around
have
the
a pile
area.
of them next to the
have
candy.
a pile there, and we want to be able to bless our neighbors.
Yes.
Right. As in our family, we at one point we had little bouncy balls with a smiley face.
No.
We said, "Hey, I hope you're doing well," and we wanted to bring life.
Yes.
We smiled. We asked questions about their costumes and
and you might meet some of your neighbors
yeah.
that you've never met before too.
And it was actually that's true. We met some. We said, "Hey, where are you guys at?" And they pointed to where they were at in there. Know that everyone carries insecurities, right, Rebecca? That's the reality. Everybody carries them with them. Halloween is a time where you get to, some kids find a sense of confidence in who they've dressed up to be. That can give us a lot of information as we're having conversations with our kids. Why did they find confidence behind that outfit or
what does it say about them?
They've dressed up
the
a certain way.
Lead. Yeah.
Why do they need that? And how do we help them say, hey, you have this identity in Christ all year long?
Yes.
And even with our neighbors, if we know there's a child that tends to be shy and insecure and they show up gleaming with this outfit that they've chosen to be or this character they've chosen to be, pour into them in that moment and maybe point out some things you love about who they are, not who they've been dressed up to be.
It's good.
Gives you an opportunity to speak life into them, into who you see behind the mask. And with those young kids, they will remember that from you as a neighbor, because they're just going in, getting the candy and leaving. But if you bring a life-giving word as you sneak it in there, as you're putting in the candy, something you've noticed about them in the neighborhood, that's going to be more important than any candy. That's sweetness to their soul, which is great to do.
Absolutely. Well, whatever you decide to do regarding Halloween, it's our prayer that you do it for God's glory. Thank you, Danny, for sharing your experience. And
you too, Rebecca.
Pray, we pray that this is helpful. Yeah. Well, if you'd like to learn more about Halloween, Focus on the Family has a great article entitled, Should Christians Celebrate Halloween? You can find it linked below in the show notes. Well, it's time for our weekly Q&A. This week's question comes from a mom named Kathleen who asked, Hi, I'm calling regarding my 13-year-old daughter lying straight to my face. It's mostly over small things, such as whether or not she's brushed her teeth, but sometimes it's about homework, and then her teacher will tell me she's missing assignments. And then when I talk to her about being truthful and asking her why she's lying and trying to hide things, she gaslights me and says, why don't I ever trust her? And I never believe her. So I just don't know how to build a foundation of trust when I can't sift through what's fact and what's fiction. She's also adopted, and I just mentioned that as another aspect to this conversation in case it's relevant. Thank you so much for your time. Wow, Danny. What do you think?
It's a big one. A lot of factors here, Kathleen.
Yes.
Thank you for asking this question. It's complex. Dishonesty has a lot of purposes for a person. Sometimes it's based out of fear. I don't want to get in trouble. In this case, I think it may be out of wanting control or not knowing how to disagree. Not knowing how to disagree well with you, Kathleen, in this case. It doesn't make you a bad parent, but maybe your daughter just hasn't learned how to disagree and go back and forth. If there's maybe she doesn't want to brush her teeth in that moment and thinks that maybe brushing teeth once a day makes sense. You can validate that and say, well, maybe you don't like brushing your teeth, and I totally get it. It feels inconvenient, takes you away from other things, and it's very necessary that you take care of your teeth, and you guide her in that. The homework piece, the assignments, maybe she struggles and doesn't know how to bring that up. There's usually something behind the behaviors. And with dishonesty, we can get so locked up on the dishonesty because it feels like betrayal or like you're being deceived, and it triggers old things old experiences with dishonesty you've experienced. And so you're reactive, and it closes things up even more. To teach honesty, you want to give opportunities for that motivation to be triggered. And so that means for you, Kathleen, it would be setting up opportunities to, and we've talked about the marble system. You guys probably go, oh my goodness, here he is with the marble thing. It is so
works.
effective. I've used it
Yes.
with so many families, so many different ways. And it's a way to really see that going out to eat or certain things are privileges and not rights.
Yeah.
And in this case, there is this desire for control. And so it gives a child or a young person control in this, in that when they're honest, you want to say, hey, I noticed you were honest. You're noticing it, not going, oh, yeah. But you're saying, I noticed you were honest. That was hard for you. I appreciate that. And you show respect towards that, and you grab marbles or rocks or whatever, and you put it in the jar, and you go, man, we're going to fill this up. And we're going to celebrate the fact that you're learning how to be honest. Because what that's going to get you is trust. It's going to get you respect.
Yes.
It's going to get you love.
Yes.
Amazing things that you are going to want and love and treasure. And it's not because I need to control you. It's not because you have to be perfect. It's because I want you to have love and I want you to have trust.
Yes.
Because those are going to be the biggest possessions you ever own. And with this adopted daughter, there may be a sense of self-protection. A lot of times dishonesty is about that. You're trying to navigate what's out there so you get what you want. And so a good question for your daughter could be, what is it that you really want? I notice you've been lying, and that's something that you choose to do pretty quickly. What is it that you're wanting? Help me understand you better. Help me to know you a little bit better. Because what it does is it disconnects us. It removes trust here.
Yes.
And it's really affecting our relationship, and I really want to have a good one with you.
Good. That's good.
And I want the best things for you. So let me in by being honest with me.
Yes.
And that marble system, when it fills up, maybe go out. That's when you go to a restaurant. No other time. It's just when that's filled. They get to help choose that. If you have other kids, have them all participate in that as a family, and then whoever. You can rotate whoever gets to pick that from the menu of restaurants that you guys go into, or celebrate as a family by camping out in the family room and watching a movie together. That honesty helps build a home, because then trust is at the foundation of those relationships. So emphasize that with your daughter, Kathleen. This is a hard one. It's tough. Be patient with it. That's a big thing.
And what I really hear, Kathleen, is you're a diligent parent. You're taking it seriously. You're really trying to be proactive about moving through this with your daughter. So well done. Well done with your diligence. Thank you so much for your question. And if you are listening and you have a question for us, please send it in.
Yeah, send it in.
Yeah, we'd love that. Click the link in the show notes or go to practicemakesparent.com and click the button on the side of our show page to submit a voicemail. And if your voicemail gets selected, we'd love to send you a free copy of Danny's book, 7 Traits of Effective Parenting, wonderful book, as our way of saying thank you for interacting with the show.
Well, we hope that this episode gave you some practical ideas, some practical tips on how to navigate Halloween with your family.
And that's just one of the reasons why we love doing this podcast, because our goal is to equip parents like you with practical tools that you can use in your everyday life with your kids. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm Dr. Danny Huerta.
And I'm Rebecca St. James. Join us next week for more tips for transforming your parenting on Practice Makes Parent.